I'm trying to find an interesting order. Okay, it doesn't really matter. This is by the way, this is my favorite part of the podcast.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Just because
I'm gonna switch.
we've already done a podcast. Well, I won't use this part, but surprise, surprise, this is movie magic. We've already done a podcast. So now we just kind of get to go just some questions. You know
okay.
What I mean? So there's a 6-pack of questions with my upcoming guest, David. What would you like to learn most on a computer?
What would I like to learn most on a computer?
And we'll say smartphone, device, whatever. Like computer feels like one of those old gray computers my parents had.
Yeah,
like,
say computer.
What do you want to learn on a computer? How to do email.
One of them talking picture boxes. Yeah, I feel like I said computer the other day, and it was contextual, but the word feels so archaic.
But there's no other word. I know. Would you say laptop? Is that what you would say instead of computer?
I feel like almost you could say device, but that's a little bit general. But laptop, maybe.
Well, it's kind of like when people in Texas call soda Coke. You know what I mean? It's like a computer is a laptop, but it's a laptop. It's not a computer.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know. Okay, so what would I most like to learn? What I most like to learn, I feel like, and I just started touching on this to kind of support my writing, is some of the AI stuff. I feel like that's really, no pun intended, taken on life of its own, because it's scary how quickly that stuff is moving forward. But
it's kind of cool though.
It's super cool, but also very scary.
Also, I can see how we get to iRobot really fast.
Yeah. It's like, what have you seen that meme of who's the young kid in Terminator? What's the character's name?
Whatever that kid's name, I can't remember.
And he's like looking at you playing with AI, and he's like just not amused at all. He's like, this is where it starts. So yeah, probably that.
What would you love to find at a yard sale?
John Connor, that's his name. What would I love to find at a yard sale? Man, my grandmother would know. She was a yard sale aficionado. What would I love to find at a yard sale? It'd be super neat. Not that I have anything in mind in particular, but what if randomly somebody had something from my past, like from my youth?
Like yours or just
mine,
like it?
No, like my something or other.
Okay, like you know.
I know the chance of that are like crazy slim.
No, but these are your soccer cleats from like when you were 12. Like they're yours. They have your name written in the bottom.
Like etched in, something that would be neat. Just I don't know, to see something.
I mean, I feel like immediately I'd be like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it completely changes.
Like, is this like...
Yeah, all right, Ashton, come on. Just for the experience, I feel like that could be a neat thing.
Did you ever watch the show Storage Wars?
I feel like
it's a story about the lockers where like they buy lockers and
and you just whatever's in there. Yeah. So I've seen, I think maybe one episode of it once.
I think it would be cool to go to a yard sale and like find something that's like really unique like that. You take it to one of those like antique places and they're like, this is like an old bowling ball washer. And you're like, wow, they're like
worth $1 billion kajillion.
They're like, this thing goes for like $6,000. You're like, holy shit.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Thanks, Grandma.
Thanks. We're going to Fiji.
Is that? Would you go to Fiji? Here's a bonus question. Where would you go, like on vacation, if it was like all expenses paid? Like it's just like you get to have the time of your life. Where would you want to go?
I would like to go to Italy. Excuse me. I would like to go to Italy primarily because I've always wanted to see. My grandfather came over from Napoli, so I'd like to go see, kind of where he grew up. He apparently grew up in not a nice part of town, but yeah, just kind of explore that. And then conversely, for my dad's side of the family in Ireland.
I don't know. Maybe I'll take this out.
Edit
I
that.
wonder if anybody in my family has ever murdered somebody. Do you know if you have someone in your family that's murdered somebody? Because I got to think, if you go far enough back in my family
There
tree,
has to be
somebody has murdered somebody.
Somebody did some shit somewhere.
Even in caveman days.
Yeah,
He's
like it's
bad idea.
what bedink. International translator. Oh, you don't understand me? How about now? I don't have any proof anywhere, so I can't say definitely I know, but potentially, and I'll leave it at that.
I mean, I just think it's impossible. Like, if you just think, as far back as your family tree could go, and how many people that's going to include, and just the percentages of what type of people would be in that group.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's probably going to be a murderer. There's going to be some other bad people, and there's going to be some there's going to be some really great people that did really great things that really outshined your ass. But but I mean, definitely. Well, and also like depending on maybe where you grew up, like, you know. So because I was thinking, I was like, man, like Italy, and like I was like, I bet some big people murdered some people around there. You know what I mean? I bet there was some stuff going on.
There were, I mean, yeah, even stateside, I know there was some ties to the family.
See, that's what I'm saying.
For a minute. So,
all right. I don't know if you're going to have an answer for this, but maybe I'm projecting. What remains undone that you've wanted to get done for years?
What remains undone that I've wanted to get done for years?
What have you been putting on the back burner forever?
Well, one thing I can tell you is I've always wanted to live in Europe for an extended amount of time. I've gone on a couple vacations, but never more than like 6, 7, 8 days. But I've always wanted to actually move my mailing address and all that to somewhere in Europe.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna play coach right now. So
Yeah.
what is keeping you from realizing this dream?
Completing the tasks that I've already set in motion.
But it's on the list.
It's likely this year that's going to become a very real possibility.
See,
I've already started
whole podcast of this. Whole podcast of this right here.
Dude, we could just. Can we just get a reset? We got another 3 hours.
If you could be brilliant in one subject, what would you choose?
Ooh. If I could be brilliant in one subject, I would say building, from a business perspective, building something absolutely massive, like building a very, very big in impact. I feel like that's the qualifying statement there. Brilliant in executing on building businesses that create massive impact. And I say that because I'm already a creator. A lot of what I do inside of my small business here, the guys absolutely love it. Like I'm essentially injecting these guys into the boots of the hero inside of their own journey. And it's a very cinematic approach, and no one else is doing that, not that I've seen, along with the curriculum and all the coaching. So to be able to take the skill set that I have and plug that into the function of building a business that has massive impact. I mean, essentially I'm saying that because that's what I'm in the middle of learning right now. But that's the move.
The original question is, what would you want to be brilliant in? Well, you would like to be brilliant in what you're doing right now. That is the short answer of it. You know what I mean?
And what I'm learning right now.
Yeah.
And what I'm learning right now. Yeah.
I mean, that's great though. You know what I mean? To like, mine would probably be, which I think this is impossible, but like just I guess you could be. There are people that are brilliant. Just the psychology of people and just humans and how we all operate and work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my friends are totally annoyed with me asking them questions about it. So I gotta,
find new friends.
I gotta find new friends. I'm looking. Anybody want to be asked a bunch of questions about your life all the time?
Who wants to go to Fiesta, Texas? Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Okay. I picked this question on purpose, so I'm hoping that you have a great answer because I just thought it was funny. If you could change one thing about the way you look, what would it be?
Change one thing about the way I
Because
look.
let me preface this a little bit. David is in fantastic shape and is a very good looking individual and cares about the way he dresses and looks. So I knew or maybe thought possibly he would have something like, there's this one thing though that I'd really want to change. Unless he has total acceptance of himself and then he's just going to say nothing.
Well, I mean,
I feel like I just spoiled a movie.
spoil the movie. I just spit. Sorry. I don't know that I'd want. I don't know that I'd want to change anything.
I mean, is there anything that would just be nice? Like maybe you'd rather have blonde hair than black hair, or like, is there just anything that you're like, like, wish I had a couple tattoos, or so, I don't know. It's like something not so heavy, maybe. You know what I mean?
No, what would be cool, because I feel like I could get away with it, is if I could grow a full beard. Because I get like this, and then I get these little 1 or 2 hair pocket rebellious. The longer I let it grow out, the more homeless I look. Essentially, is what it looks like. So yeah, I feel like it would be cool to be able to grow like a more even or like beard at all. But I would say that's more like an addition. I wouldn't necessarily change.
Nah, you know what I mean? Like
anything.
it's kind of like me. Like if I had to pick something like that, it would be like I complain about it. My hair's like really thick.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I have this big, thick hair that most girls would die to have. But for me, it's like, like for a guy to have long hair and to be real thick, it's just real big and poofy. And all the people that have long hair that I like, all their hair is thin because it looks a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, if I keep talking shit, I might have thin hair real soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Careful.
Yeah. All right, so this is the final one. And I say this one for last on purpose because I think it speaks to probably you'll be able to speak to. Never mind. How do you define integrity, and do you have it?
I think very simply, integrity is doing what you say you will do when no one else is looking. And I think. Man, inside that conversation of congruence and not being a hypocrite, I can't say that I'm perfect, but every day I have those conversations with myself, and every day I eke forward a little bit somehow towards that level of integrity that I feel like the most loving, powerful, successful, caring, conscious version of me will be able to sustain.
Well, I kind of made up this saying that if you don't call yourself on your own bullshit, somebody else will.
For sure. Yeah.
And so if you're not checking your ego and your integrity and who you are as a person, somebody else is going to come along and do it. And then what are you going to do with that?
Yeah. And very often when you're not prepared to receive that criticism.
And so then what's going to happen?
Yeah. So it's
like it's best for you to go ahead and just go take care of that yourself, because guess what? It is your responsibility anyway.
Yeah. And here's the thing. There are certain things that and even if it's just like self-talk, I don't say just self-talk and minimize it, but there are things that you do that no one will ever know about that directly affect how robust you are as a person and how you show up in your life. Right. And you might not ever know until you might never know, but if it's on your radar and it's a thing that should be addressed, man, no shame in, giving it a shot, seeing what comes out of it.
When we were on the podcast, I was talking about the great accomplishment of my garbage disposal.
Mm-hmm.
And that shifted my whole mood for that day. You know what I mean? And that was a very little thing, And so I think, doing those things, taking notice of them, appreciating them, appreciating what you have and what you don't, bringing your awareness, bring yourself to the present, all that stuff makes everything so much more manageable, so much more attainable. Would you say your ability to be present is what allows you to, on a very like just black and white level, your awareness allows you to maintain your physique and be be in good shape because you bring awareness to what you're actually doing and not what you think you're doing. Does that make sense? Because like where a lot of people fail is they go, like as an example, they go, I'm eating the right stuff. And you go, well, let me see your food log. And they're like, oh, I don't keep one. Well, you can keep on walking. You know what I mean? Unless you're that, unless you're that dialed in, unless you look like David, I'm going to go ahead and need to see your food log. I don't need to see David's food log. His food log is totally fine. Whatever he's doing is working. Right.
Sure.
And so I think that's, you know, it's what you were talking about maybe before about like, you know, checking yourself and who is the real person and what are you really saying? And are you backing your actions match your words? Are you saying what you say you're going to do? Are you showing up the way you tell people you show up? It's one thing to tell people, hey, I show up this way. But if you don't show up that way, they'll notice.
Yeah. And the problem is when no matter what you're after, no matter what you're doing, you know in your heart what you feel is right. You know in your heart what you feel you should be shooting for. And if you are bold enough to especially say it out loud, write it down, or both, or one of those to another person, you know, that high level of accountability, if you're not showing up and doing what you said you would do, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not pretty or not polished the way you want it to, man, the effort of showing up and doing what you said you would do is so powerful in, and again, I don't know female psychology. I'm speaking primarily for the guys here. But man, what it does for your confidence, what it does for, you know, and if you don't, it begins to eat away, like it erodes the core of who you are. And then you start to bend with some of your non-negotiables. You start to bump up and create friction against your moral standards and those core values that you operate on. And those start to crumble. And it's just, it can be a really slippery slope. But if you simply show up and say, hey, I'm just going to do this thing. I said I'm going to do it. I said I'm going to do the damn laundry. Like, give myself 5 minutes to knock that shit out. And it's like, did you know how much taking a few minutes to fix that damn garbage disposal, did you know it was going to flip your day around like that?
Because I've done things like that before.
So you had the reference experience.
Yeah, I knew.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how powerful that was going to be.
Yeah, but the thing is,
that inspired me to do more of those things.
Yeah, because, and it's not just for the feeling either. Like that feeling is, yeah, it's awesome. It feels good, but there's a certain depth that's limiting to that. But knowing that you accomplished a thing, especially when there was a very clear and obvious unknown, that's the awesome piece, man. You know, so it's, you know, again, for anybody that's listening who, maybe feels like these words are just kind of fun and fancy and, neat to throw around. Test it.
Yeah, give it a try.
Test it. Yeah. See what you can eat.
Prove me wrong. Now you're gonna have to do it more than once.
Well, yeah, repetition.
You gotta practice a little bit. It might take you a couple. Not everybody likes a match on the first strike.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but once you feel that feeling, you'll be like, okay, yeah, let's do that again.
And here's the encouraging part: is you do something once, then it's a task. It's a one-off. You do something a couple of times, it becomes a habit. You do something more frequently with enough intention, then it becomes part of your character. It's an identity trait, right? Then you keep doing it, and it is your identity. It is who you are, and you'll start to notice those shifts when one of my clients in particular, he works with a lot of doctors, and he was known as a certain guy, never saw himself as, I want to minimize it, but he just saw himself in a certain way, and the world received him in that way. He started making changes. Yeah, surprise, surprise.
And then the world started receiving him in what way?
In a different way, but it was unsolicited. So he's at this conference that he was speaking, and one of his understudies was like, oh, I want to be disciplined and fit like you're always like, you're the nutrition guy. And he was like, he almost argued it. He's like, I'm not the, and then he froze for a second. This is him kind of relaying this story to me. He's like, I had never in my life considered that someone would tell me I'm the nutrition guy, but it's because he just got the reps in. He did what he said he was going to do, and it wasn't perfect all the time. And this is a very high performing guy, very high achieving. He could he could outclass many people in many rooms that I could imagine. But even for him, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't dialed in initially. It took him weeks. It took him a couple months to understand some of the nuance. But by the time he was there, they were like, no, he's the nutrition guy. Like, I like talking to you because you're fit. Like, what are you doing? And he considered himself very average physique. But now he's got medical students coming to him like, well, what are you doing to keep yourself happy? What are you doing to keep yourself fit? And that's the way it works. You know, you do something long enough and you continue to operate within the hedges of that integrity that, you know, that you seek, then the world will, you know, what is done in private is rewarded in public, sort of thing.
Well, let me ask you, how many podcasts do I need to do before I become the podcast guy?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's up to you.
Right. And so, you know, if you want to be known as the nutrition guy, it's up to you. It's up to you to do that and live that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if I'm doing that and I'm living that, like currently you could call me like, I'm a podcast guy. I'm doing a podcast.
Yeah.
If I stop doing it, call a spade a spade. I am no longer a podcast guy.
Yeah.
Right. So like, you know, if it becomes something that you live and you do, then you do make that shift and the world receives you in a different way, you know?
Yeah. And I would assume that at some level of commitment, admission, and frequency, before you even started doing podcasts, there was a piece of you that saw yourself like this doing podcasts. And in your mind, maybe there was a subtle narrative like, I could be a podcast guy. Maybe it's not like, maybe it went from like, I could be, or maybe a podcast, or maybe I'm a podcast guy, or I could be one of many, to ultimately it's like, yeah, you are the moderately good podcast guy. Like, you're the guy to go to. Right. But it's a matriculation. There's an evolution that happens.
Do you know what's crazy? It was a slightly different experience for me. It was more of like, there was something inside my head going like, you can't do a podcast. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you can't do, like, you got other shit to do. Like, you can't do a podcast. Mm-hmm. It's never going to become anything. You can't do a podcast. It's never going to make any money. You can't do it. You just can't. Why would you do that? Mm-hmm. And then just making that initial leap to do one. And for some weird, maybe because it was like around the pandemic was still going on, so things were still kind of closed down. Mm-hmm. It somehow pushed me to 2, and that pushed me to 3, and that pushed me to here.
But here's the interesting piece: is it's like there's not going to be a voice of fear trying to keep you where you are if the idea of you becoming a podcast guy isn't already present.
I think it's definitely.
So
I think it was like this. It was like, you know, it's like I could see, like, you know, you have your dreams and your ideas and what you want to project and who you want to mm-hmm. be and all that stuff. You're pointing your ship in that direction, for lack of a better word, right? But there is a gatekeeper of yourself mm-hmm. that you're going to have to get past.
Yep, over.
And it's kind of like this though. Like, I mean, and there's a lot of psychology around this, so it's not like I'm making this shit up. But like, not only do you have to get past him, you now have to become friends with him. Mm-hmm. And he's always going to be fucking hanging out, you know, like on the side, like smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
Like just going like, I'm just going to wait for you to fuck this shit up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And you're going to have to be like, can you please shut up? I am busy doing some stuff right here. You know what I mean? And it's always going to be, and you know, it almost needs, like, you need to drown him out. Like, you need to be so into what you're doing and becoming better that mm-hmm. that voice doesn't have a voice. It's just recognized to being there as part of you. That's just a part of me. That's not something that dictates my direction anymore.
Well, and I think over time, if you're diligent enough, then that voice becomes, I mean, it drowns out and you don't even notice it anymore, if it's even there. And part of the power there, of course, for those of you who are listening and watching, is the repetition. Like, anytime we do something, this is a large part of what I teach my guys too, at a fundamental level, is when you are bold enough to say the thing, to admit what you want, to admit what you don't want, what you will and will not tolerate, sort of thing, then immediately there's a certain layer of personal accountability. And so once you start to act on that, it's essentially, it's like that voice, or like the subconscious, the old version of you, like, whoa, that's not, hey man, that's not who we are, right? The limiting beliefs that then lead to patterns of destruction, meaning doing the same shit that got you the current result, right? And it's like the more you get those reps and the more you continue to grow, you know you're doing it right when you have that internal personal friction, because it's like your subconscious is saying, hey, listen, this isn't right. This isn't cool. That's not who we are. Look at what all the shit that you've done in the past. But when you get to step up and those patterns change, this pattern recognition, pattern adjustment, and then pattern like utilization, right? You tool the pattern, the new pattern. Then, as you guys are, creating new habits, then when that voice comes up, the guy sitting back, like he's up out of his chair now, because he's like, he sees you doing something different and he's feeling a bit uncomfortable. He's feeling alarmed because he knows his time is limited, right? So he's like, hey man, no, hey, listen, because we gotta go do this thing, and like all this other shit distraction, because he's looking, and even the voice, which is really you ultimately. You're the one that gets to sit in that driver's seat. But initially that voice is like, no, this is who we are. And then he's got all these new files coming in. He's like, this is new. This is not how we used to do things. This is the way we've always done it, and let's just go back to that. But the more you continue to send those files across his desk, the more he's going to get used to it. It's like exposure therapy. He's going to get, okay, I guess, well, I recognize that. And these files are kind of cool. Okay. And he's going to start organizing because his desk is going to get, messy, and however he likes to organize it. Right. And pretty soon he's got a stack of new proof that is quantitative and measurably undeniable, that speaks to one truth. And that is, you are this type of man. You are this type of guy. All the old data doesn't even apply anymore. And so the voice is like, shit, I guess this is what we do now. Or in my client's case, I guess I'm the nutrition guy now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really powerful stuff, man. Yeah. It's really, and applicable. Like it's all doable, all of it.
Man, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah.